Hi, this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to visit Disneyland again for another layout, and this one is going to be super fun. It's actually just sort of a collection of photos that we took on Main Street the last evening that we were there, and it was just about sundown, so they are just a lot of the lights and just kind of the atmosphere of the park. And I think this layout is going to be super fun and easy to put together. So I hope that you enjoy it. I hope it's something that you can use in your idea box for your own albums. Let's check out what I've got in my workspace and get started. Alright, so you will recognize this as the right hand side of the last layout we did for the Disney album. This was from the Mountain Railroad ride, and super fun. I really liked this one. This was created based on a sketch. Today we're not using a sketch or anything, we're just using my own imagination, and this should be fairly simple and straightforward. I have one piece of designer paper, and you'll notice it's kind of a Christmassy one. And that's because today's pictures, as I mentioned, are kind of just of the atmosphere, of the holiday atmosphere that we were encountering. As you can see, there's lots of garland and lights and that kind of thing. I also have two pieces of Cranberry cardstock. I'm trying to remember where this paper came from, but it is a recent, I think this was Joy to the World, actually. If memory serves me correctly, it is from the Joy to the World Christmas pack, and the back side is rather plain, but we're going to use this side because it just has a lot of really fun, jazzy stuff on it, and so I just thought it would be super fun. I'm trying to figure out if it's directional as I keep turning it here, but I'm not really seeing that any particular design is indicating a direction. They're all just kind of upside down and forwards and backwards, and so we're going to leave it that way. Anyway, here are my photographs. I have 9 photographs that I have cut into 3.5 square, and I have kind of just selected a bunch that were from Main Street. They kind of go from one end of Main Street to the other. This one, as you can see, is looking down towards the castle. Some of these are looking, well, that one's still looking towards the castle. That one is the castle, so I guess most of them are towards the castle, not looking away, like I was thinking. But these pictures are looking the other direction, towards the railroad station and the entrance to the park. So we're going to put these pictures, leave these pictures whole, and put them on the right hand side of the layout. The left hand side of the layout will have all 9 of these 3.5 inch square photos. So in order to accommodate those, we are going to do some mats and some framing, and so I'm going to move the pages out of the way and just keep the papers that I just mentioned, and I'm going to grab my trimmer and we're going to do some trimming here really quick. Let's see. First of all, we're going to make a frame for the right hand side of the page. Now, to do that, you've seen me use these clips before. They really help me out. They really help me, enable me to be able to make my frame quickly. So that's my goal here, is to be able to quickly cut and make all the cuts even. And so if you're not familiar with using the clips on the 12-inch trimmer, let me just run through that with you. This line right here, the white line on the housing that holds our blade, is 1 inch from either end of the housing unit that slides back and forth on the arms that hold our cutting blade. Okay, and there is a ruler, which you can see right here, that is on the arm of the cutting blade. which is very handy because if we go ahead and place a clip at 1 inch beyond where we want our blade to stop, then it makes a very handy tool for judging and making sure that our blade stops where we want it to, right? So, so I placed this clip. I'm going to make a 1.5 inch frame that goes all the way around my page. So I placed this clip at the 1/2 inch mark on my trimmer. So the left hand part of my clip is right at the 1/2 inch mark on the trimmer arm. And this one down here I want to stop at 10.5 inches so that I have an 1.5 inch frame. And so in order to get it to stop at 10.5 inches, I place my clip at 11.5 inches. That way when my blade comes down here, it should stop right at, and I'm just going to adjust this just a tiny bit because I tend to, my blade, the blades are round, and so sometimes they do go slightly beyond the mark. So I'm looking at this mark to determine whether it is in line with the grid at 10.5 inches, and then placing my clip here. Basically, it's at the 11.5 inch mark. All right, so now I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to line it up with the top shoulder and the 1.5 inch mark to the right of my cutting line. So right out here, it's basically just one grid line in on the right hand side of my trimmer, and then I can go from top to bottom and turn it and just keep cutting and turning and going all the way around my square, and it will make a uniform frame for my page. It's one of those cool tricks. I do have a video that explains this in detail, a little bit slower, so if you want, you can look that video up on my channel under tips and tricks. All right, so that's one frame we're going to make. Now I want to make a frame that is just a little bit smaller. So I'm going to move my blade in 1/4 inch. Okay, so that will allow me to have just a little bit more space. And I'm going to make a red frame that's going to go underneath my printed frame. So I'm going to go all the way out to the 1 3/4 inch mark on the right hand side, and each time I turn my paper I'm going to move it to the 1 3/4 inch line. And cut it just the same way I cut the first one. Okay. Now we can put this on top and we end up with a really nice inner red frame that goes all the way around. So now we're going to cut some mats to go around the photos that will be on the left hand side. These mats are going to be 3 3/4 square, so we're just going to use the left hand side of my trimmer and measure out to the 3 3/4 mark. I'm going to take these clips off because I don't need them anymore. Just cut 3 strips. And then going to turn these and cut 3 more to make 9 squares, 3 3/4. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere all of the square photos that I mentioned before to these red squares. All right, so one thing that I did forget, or didn't realize that I didn't remember that I had decided to do, was I have 8 photos, and I'm going to leave the center one blank to do journaling and a few other things in. So I was going to check here and see my order of things, because since this is kind of a journey down Main Street, I'm trying to remember the order that everything went in so that we can kind of get a better sense of the location of everything. All right, so these are going to go on here somewhat like so. All right, so let me, I'm going to go ahead and adhere these. I'm going to explain though how I'm going to do that. I'm going to actually line up my page on the grid that I'm working on my desktop so that I can find the center. And we're going to work from the center out. I know that I need about a 1/4 of an inch from the edge, and I know that I know that this line right here is the center of my page. So I'm going to do my best to center that mat on my page. Then we'll center this middle one. Right below it. And then this one. And then it should enable us to make sure that all the other photos line up appropriately. Okay, so I need a little bit less space between my top and my middle. So good thing I didn't just set that one right down, right? So I just want to move that up just a little. There. Now we can get the rest of these glued down. All right, so those are now all adhered. Let's go ahead and do the right side of our layout. And I'm just gonna double check something because, yeah, so it looks like the cranberry paper is ever so slightly wider than our printed paper. So that's really only important in that I'll want, when I place this designer paper on, I'll want to make sure that I'm careful about it being centered instead of completely lined up evenly, because if I line it up evenly on one side, it's going to really show quite a lot on the other. And we don't want that. So, all right, so there's our red. Now we're going to adhere. My frames get caught on everything under the sun, it feels like. All right. So this one's going to be almost to the edge and almost to the edge. We're just going to have just barely a hint of that red around the outside. And again, that's just because of a small variance in the way the paper was manufactured, so it'll be okay. Really, I can't see it as much on the top and the bottom as I can on the outer sides. Alright, so I was planning on trying to go ahead and mat these as well. Let me see how large of a piece we have here. We have 8.5. So what I would need is 5x3 photos in order to do an 8.5 magic mat with this. So let's see if I can turn these into 5x3 photos, or if I would want to. And if I don't want to, I'll just pull another piece of cardstock out. Notice these two are almost exactly the same, but the looks on our faces are different. And so I tried really hard to decide which one of these was the best. And I can't decide because I like this one of me and I like this one of my husband. So it was kind of like, what do I do? So I'm just going to put both of them in there. What's the harm, right? And then this was just another one that was a little bit too big to be put into a 3.5 inch square. So I'm going to include that on this page with these. And let's see. This one I could cut it down and that would not be too hard. These, I feel like we get a lot of the garland in these photos over here, so it might not be needed in these, but I like how you can see like all the way down and all of the different garlands that go across the road, which is really only noticeable in a couple of these photos. So let's see. My husband, who's been helping me with editing, says that I waffle too much. Apparently, he doesn't like to have to delete me, but it bugs him that I don't have decisions made. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and grab another piece of paper. All right, so these are 4x6. Let's see if we can do some magic mats here that are 4.5 inches. Let's see if this will work. So to do that, 4.5 and 6.5 is 4.5 plus 6.5, which is 11. So that means I need to take 11 inches off, or 1 inch this direction. I need an 11-inch square. So I'm going to turn this, make it 11 inches square, and then we should be able to do some magic mats. If you don't know what magic mats are, there's a video in my tools or tricks, tips and tricks that can help you with that. So I'm going to start down here at 6.5 and go forward. Then I'm going to turn this clockwise, line it up at 4.5, Start down here at 6.5 where I cut, go forward, there's one mat, 4.5. This is something I don't do very often, mostly just because I don't often make quite so many mats. But there's 4.5 by 6.5 mats. And though we don't need 4, we've got 4. I'll just set that one over there for another time. And we'll go ahead and get these adhered, centered on here. This is going to give 1/4 inch, roughly. It's actually going to be slightly more than 1/4 inch on the short sides. And the reason is because the printer who created these photos didn't give me a true 6-inch print. So if that bugs you, make sure you measure your photos and you know exactly how wide they are. And then what you do is you measure the short end with the long end together. You measure this length, and that's the size square you need to be able to do magic mats. Don't forget to add the extra for the mat part. So now we have these 3. Let's go ahead and notice that this has an abundance of sky. This particular photo has an abundance of sky on the top. So we really don't need all of that in our photo. Let's do like that. Let's bring these a little closer. A little more in the middle. Okay. All right, so here we have the basic layout. Now we're going to do some fun things with some pens. So I pulled out 3 of these. This is the silver dual tip pen. This is the glitter pen that came in a secret box sometime last year, which is fun. I don't know if we'll use this or not, but we might. If we use the silver and the gold, they might not work well together, so we might need the gold dual tip pen if we want to use the glitter pen. Or I have this white jelly roll pen. So far, CM has not given us a white journaling pen. I wish that they would do that, but so far they have not. So I continue to use these. Once again, I do not have my 0 centering ruler. So let me grab a different ruler. You'll recognize these if you're an old CM person. Do you remember this? The borderlines rulers. That's a throwback, eh? All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and draw some stitching lines through these photos. Okay, not this side necessarily, but definitely on this side. And I'm going to do white because I want to kind of pull some of the white that's in this paper onto this page. So I'm going to do some faux stitching lines that are just going to go in between each of these pictures. And they're just going to be like 1/8 of an inch long, not very long at all. 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to go all the way around. And my husband will probably, my editor, will probably speed this up, which is fine. All right, now we've got this side done. Now this side, I'm going to go ahead and do something similar, but I'm going to not draw on my photos. So we're just going to do just a little bit of a stitching line right around the mats for each one of the photos. And I'm not going to carry that through onto the frame that's around the outside. I'm just going to do kind of like that. All right, so we're going to do just about the same width or same spacing as far as where this line goes on the outside of these photos. And stitch these in. Okay, so just like that, just enough. All right, so now we're going to do some embellishing. Okay, so we need to add embellishments in a way that's going to draw our eye to all facets of the layout. So I know I want embellishments here. I think I'm going to put one up here and one down here, and then that way I will have them in different thirds of the layout and be able to draw that attention. I have this cute little journal box that came with some of the embellishments that I've been using for this particular album, and I have these cute green hearts which I punched using the Creative Memories bow punch and using some parakeet shimmer paper. So I'm going to use both of those, 2 bows and this journal box. And we could pop up these bows using some foam squares. So let me take a look and see what I've got here. And I just took the other foam piece off of that, but it didn't come off my paper. I need some scissors to be able to cut a few more small ones. It used to be that I had way too many small ones in the old way that we did these. The old way that Creative Memories sold their foam squares. I had way too many little ones, and now I've gotten used to trying to use up the little ones, and there just aren't quite enough little ones on a sheet for me. I guess we're never happy, right? I'm not complaining, really. I'm not. Just explaining. Okay, so we're just going to remove the double-sided little stickies off of these. And then that way these cute little bows can kind of garner the opposite corners on our journal box. Okay, so there's that. And then going to just do kind of a tiny one down here in the bottom. Just going to use some repositionable adhesive to add a green bow to this gold foiled package. That was part of, I think, Joy to the World. I'm trying to remember. And that will just sort of add a little bit to that. Oop, I grabbed the wrong adhesive. Go away. Fortunately, I didn't I don't have an issue with how that went on. And I'm just going to tuck this stocking kind of up and under the bow just a tiny bit, and it's just going to kind of go off to the side. Okay, then the top, at the top we're going to use, I'm going to add a foam square to the center of this holly punch. Again, parakeet shimmer paper and the holly punch, and then I had this cute little gold star which I punched from something and saved. And let's see if it'll cover. Not quite. Well, oh well, that's the way that goes, because I didn't think about that until after it was already down. All right, I have a wreath, which is part of the same collection as the paper, the Joy to the World collection, and then I have this cute Merry Christmas little title. So I'm going to add that on, and this is going to go kind of up here in this space. And then we'll add the holly in as an accent for the Merry Christmas. All right, there we go. What do we think? Let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to hear it. I always love to hear what you guys think. Another thing that you can do, which I did not do when I wrote in these stitch lines, is you can kind of make some bows where the stitches come together. So if you're not happy with the way that these places meet, you can just do a couple of little loops and some ties, something like that. You can't really see that very well on the thing. Let me get a darker pen. And just do one of those in each of the spots. So essentially your stitch lines come together like so. And if they don't meet and you wanted them to meet, or you just don't like them, you can come in here and add a bow. Very simple little, just 2 loops and 2 ties at those corners. And it is very cute when it's all done. People don't look at it and go, ew, that doesn't look right. It looks appropriate when you look at it later. All right, so I hope this has been helpful to you, and so a layout that you can do in your own albums. It is super fun to just try different things and do different things, and I really like the stitching effect, especially on the black. It really shows up really nicely and adds a really nice effect. So at least I think so. You let me know what you think. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time, I hope you have many more creative moments. Have a great day.